Hello
My name is
everyone.
Ala Al-Ammar. I am an occupational therapist. I graduated from Princess Nourabat Abdurrahman University and about to finish my internship in Sultan bin Abdulaziz Humanitarian City. First of all, I would like to thank OT Talk, especially Sarah Al-Aqil, for this opportunity. And I would like to thank OT Ruth Magitla for her supervision and continuous support during the time that I was a vocational rehab officer in Sultan bin Abdulaziz Humanitarian City as an intern. This presentation, inshallah, will highlight vocational rehabilitation in Saudi Arabia, the processes and guidelines for beginners. So I would like to start with the general dictionary. You might come across these words in the presentation or in the everyday practice. VRO is a vocational rehab officer, and you will find this in the American literature generally. But the practice is usually held by OTs. So OTs here in this presentation are the VRO. VR is the vocational rehabilitation. OTs, occupational therapists. CMOP is the Canadian model of occupational performance. After that, we would like to say big nose for VROs or OTs who practice VR are people who look for jobs. This is a very big no. You will find this a lot in the practice, and you find people mixing things up. This is not the practice, and this isn't the goal of VR, is to find jobs or look for jobs for people. Mainly, VR is work rehabilitation, and we will come across this in the presentation. VRO is a job just for special eds, and OTs are not the one. This is another very big no for this, especially when it's come to VR as work rehabilitation. Special education, working in VR are essential part or essential element, especially for, and I saw this a lot in pediatrics, they are doing a magnificent job. But when it's come to work rehabilitation and understanding the impact of disability in the individual's functioning, I think it's more of an OT job. So, in my personal experience, when I go to people and tell them that I did 3 months of placement as a VRO, they will be surprised and they would say, "This is not OT." No, this is OT and the very essential part of OT. VR can't be provided by OTs in acute settings, or generally speaking, VR can't be provided in acute settings. This is another very big no, because I came across patients who lost their jobs because they didn't communicate the disability or the health condition that they faced during their acute stage. So, this is a very important matter. In this presentation, we will highlight these points. VR or vocational rehabilitation can be defined as whatever helps someone with a health problem to stay at or return to or remain in work. It is an approach rather than a particular intervention. Another definition for VR: vocational rehabilitation is a highly sophisticated profession grounded by a belief in the dignity and worth of all people, delivered by experts requiring a multidisciplinary skills, experience, education, and training, who assist person with functional, psychological, developmental, cognitive, and emotional impairment and health condition to overcome barriers to accessing, maintaining, or returning to employment, to a position in the community, and or to quality of life. Can you notice here that vocational rehabilitation can be also related to community rehabilitation? If you focused here, you will find that there are a lot of things that VR is interfering with rather than just taking the person and placing him or her back to their work. Vocational rehabilitation, also called occupational rehabilitation or work rehabilitation is directed to employment outcomes. According to the American Occupational Therapy Association, there are 4 goals of VR, and they are: maximize level of function following injury and or illness to maintain a desired quality of life for the worker, facilitating the safe and timely return of individuals to work following injury and or illness, remediate or prevent future injuries or illnesses, assist individuals in resuming their role as a worker. Now, we will talk about vocational rehabilitation in relation with OT models, in particular, the Canadian model of occupational performance. As we know that there are 3 main components: P for the person, E for the environment, O for the occupation. And as we practicing VR, we would like to look at them as the worker, the workplace, and the work itself. The person has 4 subcategories, let us call them: physical, cognitive, affective, and spirituality. And here, the person as a worker or a potential worker, rather than a patient with a particular disability or health condition. Why do you think that's the case here? Now I'll tell you why. Because the person will need to take an active decision to resume their daily occupations rather than remaining in a passive patient role. E for the environment, and it has 4 components: physical, institutional, cultural, and social. The particular environment in which we are interested is that of the workplace, but this extends beyond just the physical location in which the work takes place. And that's why the Canadian model will help us look at the situation or the patient in another perspective, because it focuses on the physical, institutional, cultural, and social environment rather than the physical environment where the work is carried. O for occupation, and it has 3 components: productivity, self care, and leisure. And as we are talking about work, we will focus on productivity. And productivity as an occupation, which is undertaken throughout the lifespan from play and schoolwork of a child to employment. In the worker, we need to know that any difficulties which a person experiences in their affective, cognitive, or physical function may impact on their performance of their work or occupation. And it's important to know in the workplace that each form of work and workplace puts forward its own set of barriers and facilitators to occupational performance in work, especially for a person with disability or health condition. And in the last part, which is occupation, the work that the person is doing, it's important for us as OTs and that we need to gain an understanding of the nature of the work and the work tasks which the person performs, since the components and requirements of any given type of work will differ. We assess, we set the treatment plan, we interfere, then we evaluate the outcome. In VR, there is a specific VR process, starting with referral, initial interview or assessment, pre-vocational phase, which is optional, work site visit, return to work plan, intervention or interventions, evaluation. If the outcome achieved, then discharge. As you can see, our friend Spider-Man here saying that it's too much, and it's too much. It's headache. It's painful process, but the outcome of it is what's drive you, and it's your motive is to place your patient and make him as independent as possible. It's not about the independency in the patient's everyday living in his or her ADLs. It's also extend to another dimension of independence. In Sultan bin Abdulaziz Humanitarian City, the referral will come from the doctor based on the team recommendations. Generally speaking, and in the books, and by the way, the process here is taken from the book. The everyday practice is different. But in the book, your referral might come from insurance company, the companies themselves, and from a medical team. So according to your to the source of your referral, it will determine the outcome that you will be aiming to achieve with your client. Initial interview or assessment. As I told you before, this is from the book, but some parts will apply on your everyday practice and some not. But basically, here you will assess your client. If your client is ready for work or return to work, you will complete. If he's or she is not, you will communicate this with the employer. And by the way, this is considered as a VR intervention. After that is the pre-vocational phase, and it's optional. What do we mean? We mean by the pre-vocational phase is to improve the work skills, behaviors, habit, and routine of the attendants. This phase basically is for people who never work in their life or was on work and they want a new job or whatever. Basically, you will make your client ready to access work by introducing them to the work habit, work skills, and so on. I remember during my time in Sultan bin Abdulaziz Humanitarian City, we were going assessing the clients in, for example, CI unit. Then we will see if there are so many with no work history, we will gather them and we will make a pre-vocational skills workshop, and we will explain to them how to create CVs, how to create personal emails, how to communicate with potential employers. It's not looking for jobs for them, it's more of a teaching them the skills to make them as independent as possible. After that, and if your client has a job, you will do a work site visit, and it's very fun actually. But for example, here in the kingdom, your client might be from Abha, so they're working in Abha. You will not go and do a work visit. But basically, in this phase, you need to assess the job itself, the wider work environment, and the employer's view about the individual and their role or potential role within the organization. It's like an information gathering phase of your intervention. Then you will do a return to work plan. Your return to work plan is a graduation program basically set by you, the worker, and the employer to enable the worker to return to work on suitable duties with necessary restrictions. Usually, we do this in a solid evidence, which is a report, highlighting the client's, for example, if it's return to work or reasonable accommodation, as we call it, for the patient who has a job, we will write the diagnosis, then the job demand, then the patient's ability in the meantime. It is important to provide your patient with this evidence or evident thing that they can work, because and you need to educate the patient during your counseling sessions that they can or can't work on this job, because if their employer said anything, they will have a solid evidence from a vocational rehab specialist that they can work. And I think that they call it, sometimes they take this to court and they call it, they will call an expert witness to highlight why this person is entitled to go back to work. Here in Saudi, they did do this, but they will just stick with whatever you written. And usually, before you write this document, you will communicate this with the employer, because our clients mostly are teachers or policemen. You will communicate this with their direct manager, and it will be more than enough. And it is very promising, the things that I heard from managers wanting their worker to come back to work, especially if the worker was involved in accident or something. So within the return to work plan, as we said, the therapist will outline any modifications to the workplace, environment, suitable duties, the hours to be worked, tasks to be avoided, and any arrangements. Some interventions that might help is supporting the return to work, developing in-work support, employer education, borrowed knowledge like ergonomics and cognitive behavioral therapy, work hardening and occupational rehabilitation, helping to create healthy workplace. Evaluation and outcomes. In VR, the outcomes are straightforward, and sometimes you might fail to meet the outcome due to any restrictions or barriers that come across the way. But it's important to know that measuring and analyzing outcomes is in fact a complex task, as King said, particularly in a view of the wide ranging variables which may influence the success of rehabilitation program. In VR, you will have many variables. Important to know that you didn't fail. There were some things interfered with your work. Discharge. I will highlight a very important thing here and please focus on this. Discharge is not when the patient leaves the hospital. It's not the medical discharge. Discharge in VR is it will take place about 3 weeks after the employee has resumed their full hours and duties. Notice full hours and duties because sometimes you will plan a return to work plan that will last for example 2 months till the client take their or resume their full hours and duties. It is very important to put this in mind. Now we'll talk about the area of practice in Saudi Arabia. First of all, support and or offer young people with disability with proper training programs. Um, if you came across pediatrics, and you will see this in a lot of hospitals, you will see a lot of people who will have disabilities for life. It is important for this population to be a productive part of the society, and this is a very emerging and good area of practice in Saudi Arabia, and I don't think that there are so much to offer in this area. Second, support safe return to work for people with various health conditions or disability, counseling on proper work environment for people or person with disability, work hardening programs, and ergonomics. Talking about the Saudi labor law. The new labor law approved on March 23, 2015 by the Council of Ministers aimed to regulate the labor market and enhancing its effectiveness. In Chapter 2, Articles 28 and 29, they were both directed to the employment of people with disability. Some resources to use in Saudi Arabia, and I will not go in depth because it will vary according to the disability of your client. But basically, King Salman Center for Disability Research, they have the universal access manuals. They are very useful and I highly recommend it for you guys, either if you want to complete in the vocational rehab or for you as OTs, because it is first of all it's free manuals and uh, it's very beneficial. Second is the Human Resource Development Fund, HADF. Uh, Basically, they have Tawafuq. It's a program to support the employment for person with disability. You can read about it more on their website. Second is one of the Ministry of Labor and Social Development programs and HRDF, HADF, is that telework program, and it's basically a program to support and create flexible work environment for women and person with disability to work in distance. Another program set by the Ministry of Labor and Social Development is طاقات. It's a virtual labor market in Saudi Arabia for both the private and public sector. نطاقات, you need to familiarize yourself with this program. It's also by the Ministry of Labor and Social Development, aimed to increase the Saudization of companies. The last one is قادرون. I highly recommend it for you guys, and I'll open the site later on with you to explore the awesomeness of this website. This website is business disability network. Basically, their vision is to enable employers to include persons with disabilities as equal effective member of the workforce. Their mission is to provide guidance, advice, training, and best practice to employers to recruit, retain, and include employees with disability through inclusive work environment and favorable policies. I will open it with you now, and I will show you how and they have a very good resource library, and we will explore it now. This is قادرون website. You can click on resources and you can find a lot of things that can support safe return to work or employment for persons with disability. There are policies and the Universal Accessibility Guidelines by King Salman Research Center. Thank you for your active listening. I hope that you completed till the end because it's very long one, but and I can't cover it in one presentation. I hope that it was beneficial. I hope that it add to your practice, and hopefully you benefited from this. I will place a poster about vocational rehabilitation course that will be held in Sultan bin Abdulaziz Humanitarian City. I highly recommend it for all people who are interested in this field. I will be staying to receive any comments, questions after this. Thank you and goodbye.